So, Paul, I am so delighted that you managed to take the time to join me. I mean, ever since we first connected online, we had our first conversation. What really struck me were, you know, uh, how you got over challenges in your life, which would have, floored most people. And yet you managed to do that, and you managed to do it very, very successfully. Despite the fact that you were battling things that you didn't even know existed, and the people around you didn't know existed. And we'll get into all of that. But in summary, as I say, thank you so much for coming along and sharing your expertise with our audience.
The pleasure's mine, Ashim, and it's been a great time getting to know you. And I look forward to the time when maybe we're in the same place and maybe we share a stage and we're speaking to an audience together. That would just be
Well, you know what? It's really interesting because I was thinking of exactly that this morning, because I feel that there is a synergistic value perhaps that we can bring to one another.
absolutely.
And I think that would be, quite apart from it being valuable, I think it'd be a lot of fun. For us to
Right. We might not have anyone in the audience. And that's okay. As long as we're having fun, it's great.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know as well as I do, if you're having fun, then the people who are watching you also have fun with you.
Yeah,
They
indeed.
tend to, kind of engage better. So you had an interesting childhood. Tell us a little bit about your earlier years. What was it like growing up?
Well, I guess I started off, and please take this as I'm looking for no sympathy.
Sure.
It's the plain facts. It was a bit of a difficult upbringing, but everyone has challenges where they're growing up. So I'm not suggesting by any stretch that mine was exceptionally difficult. But life was pretty good growing up. And then you start to get into school, and I was labeled dumb, stupid, lazy, a daydreamer, and it wasn't just on a report card or a piece of paper. I was called that, in class in front of my peers, and it was difficult. We moved a lot as I was young. I'm living in the 27th home I've lived in since I was born,
Wow.
and I've been in this home for 27 years. So I've never been anywhere 27 months, let alone 27 years. So there was 25 homes before I turned 30 years old.
Paul, I mean,
So
okay, so if I could just pause you there for a second,
Yeah.
because there are a couple of things I really want to dig into. The first is that from a very young age, you were getting all these critical messages. And I assume it was at school, or with your friends, or wherever. At what sort of age or age range were you hearing all of this?
So the first one I remember was around third grade.
Which is
So
how old?
about nine years old.
Fine. Okay.
I'd heard whispers of it earlier in say, let's see, 5 years old, 6, 7. It was become more pronounced as we started getting through school. It followed me through our high school system in the U.S. It even followed me into university, and the words were just different.
Right.
The meaning was the same.
Right.
They just used professorial words.
Yeah. Longer words,
Yeah.
meaning the
Right.
same thing. But no, okay, so again, when we all know, right, that our framework for life is built as children from those messages that we hear, and whether we are conscious of them or not, they do influence our behavior going forward. So
Absolutely.
here's the question, and everyone's response to hearing negativity is different. What was yours? What did you feel? Did you feel that you were, worse than others? How did you feel with regard to your siblings and so on? What was going through your head, if you remember?
Well, sure, it still comes up once in a while. So, why is this so hard? Why am I different? I see things, but I can't explain what I'm seeing.
Right.
I can create things, but I can't explain how I came up with that idea. It followed me into my professional career too. So early through, into my late 20s, I was still kind of labeled that way, even into my 30s and early 40s, up until about that time. And it was, the way I felt was ashamed. I would sometimes feel angry. I would also feel like, forget that. I'm going to show you that I'm going to prove such and such. And by age 39, I'd already started and sold my first company, and I had generated $1.3 billion in new revenue for the companies I worked for.
See,
a couple Fortune 500s. Yeah.
Now, this is absolutely fascinating because, what it shows me is that despite the fact that you were psychologically being pulled down, being drained, if you like, your response was not to give in and consider yourself a failure for the rest of your life. Your response was, I'll show them I'm not like that. And
yes.
So that there was something else going on, and we'll come to that in just a minute. There was something else going on which was a further hurdle in your life, which you didn't even know existed, and neither did the people around you. So, I mean, that's a really impressive mindset to take forward. Now, you say before the age of 39, you'd created and sold your first company. Now, again, that's pretty young, isn't it, to be doing that? What was the process, the thought process there?
Yeah, so at 18, I left home. And at the end of university, so I needed to pay my way through university. So I worked full-time and I went to school full-time. It still took me 5 years, but I made it. And then went to work for a company that I had been working for during university, moved to yet another home, and 3 homes in that one particular city. Nevertheless, there was just something in me that said, if it's going to happen, I need to do it myself. And I somewhat creative, and so I came up with an idea, and I started a fashion company, a sportswear company. And I had different ideas of the way the organization could be structured. It didn't cost me as much money. Long story short, the designs were well recognized. I didn't have a lot of working capital. In fact, I lived in my car for 2 months in order to pay the employees and pay different things. Didn't know how to raise money at the time. This was the 80s, 1987, 88. And I got it to a certain point, and then the director of marketing had a lot more experience than I did, and I wanted to go get corporate experience, which I thought would help me down the road. And that's when I sold the company to him. It was pretty much a break even. I made a few dollars and went into corporate America.
Right. So Paul, now here you are, you've created something out of your imagination, you made it work. How were you relating to the people with whom you worked at that time?
Really well. I'm able to explain to them the value of what I would make or bring. I started a company called Fadco, and I was trying, for those of you that don't remember the 1980s, yes, there actually were computers. And there were a lot of things. No, we were not using stone tablets. There wasn't chalk. It wasn't like that. So I designed some sportswear in order to generate a fad. And as the fad rose, then instead of taking it to the next level, I would license the idea or the images for other organizations to peak it and then take it on full. That way I didn't have to own a manufacturing facility. I could subcontract that out. So it was all my designs, and then the people that worked with me were terrific. Logistics, how do we get places, shipments to certain parts of the country. We were in 26 states, and so I related well along with the retail owners that were buying the line really well. I understood it.
So I think, you see, again, that is so impressive, because again, with young people, children and so on, who feel maybe inferior or less than in some other way to their peers, often have problems with developing relationships. But you managed it. You managed to create those teams. You managed to give them a direction, and they were all committed to it. So again, yeah, really, really great to hear how you did that.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure, sir. It's true. So, okay, so here we go. You're at 39. You've sold your company. You wanted to go into corporate America. Why was that?
Mhm. Well, after I sold the company, I hadn't even turned 30 yet, so I was 28. Joined corporate America at 28 and rose the ranks for 2 Fortune 500 companies as far as I could, sort of VP level, and it exposed me to a lot of things. Well, the reason I went that way was because I wanted to sort of belong. And I felt that at the time, that there were still companies that you could put in 25 or 30 years, rise through the ranks and experience a lot of things. And one of them was particularly interesting to me because you could come in and do something, but there were a lot of lanes that you could run around the same track at. So I could be in sales or marketing, I could be in account management, I could travel the world, I could go to, run an account in Frankfurt or wherever. I thought, yes, okay, I do this. I met a couple of the executives at a wedding and I thought, okay, so I'm understanding now a little bit more about corporate America, and I can learn more about the inner workings of a corporation, of a business. In fact, I might even be able to find a way to raise enough money to go back and do the entrepreneurial venture that I had started.
Right. Okay. And so you're settling in, you're learning, you're growing. You're on your journey. And then at 39, something happens. What happened?
So it was shortly after my 40th birthday that I was diagnosed with something, and that diagnosis really changed the way that I saw the world. It didn't change the perspectives that I had about the world, the way that I could read people's body language, the way that I could see patterns that other people were missing. It was a diagnosis that said, oh, okay, that's why. Now I have a language that I can perhaps explain how I came up with this. I'd be sitting in a board meeting and would come up with a solution or whatever, and the answers were, love this, you've already proven that it works, thank you for sharing the results, $500 million here or whatever, but we still don't get you. You're not like us. So I started to look into the sort of the world for people that were exceptionally innovative, successful business leaders, world leaders, community leaders, scientists, athletes, all of these. And I started studying them. And I found these are people like Henry Ford, Da Vinci, Agatha Christie, JFK, President John F. Kennedy, Richard Branson, Muhammad Ali, Kobe Bryant, Jackie Stewart, the famous Formula One race car driver, Lewis Hamilton, also Formula One driver. It was everywhere. And what I started to see were they had these incredible skills of seeing what others miss and creating innovations and solutions again. Disney, Edison, on it goes.
Okay,
they're all innovators.
So please, again, Paul, that you said so much there. I'd really like to ask for some clarification. The first is innovating, seeing things that other people don't see. We often hear that about leaders, right? And we think, well, maybe it was just a flash in the pan for them. Maybe they're in the habit of what has traditionally been called thinking outside the box. Yes. Or sharing, kicking ideas with people and producing something new. Is that what you're talking about, or is what you're talking about something different?
It is what I'm talking about slightly, and we can talk about my own personal take on thinking outside the box. But what I found is that there is a set of super skills that the people I just mentioned have that others didn't know. In fact, many of them didn't know until later. And that set of skills come with dyslexia. So all of those people were neurodiverse, or all those people were incredibly innovative, and it wasn't just a one-time thing. If you look at Da Vinci, the body of work of Da Vinci was incredible. Not just painting, architecture,
engineering,
flying machines, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And they said that it's something like 11,000 pages of notes that were still, he just never developed, but they were just in his mind. He just kept doing it, and just insatiably creative, and in a way that most people don't think of as creative, right? Art, poetry, music. Well, creativity is more than that. It's seeing something and bringing it to life to create something, right? So I started studying them, and that's what I found. And that was also the diagnosis that I received, was that I was dyslexic.
Okay, so without wanting to get too medical about it, what did the doctors say? I mean, what's the connection between being dyslexic, which means you can't read in the same way that most other people can read? What was the connection between that and being innovative in the way that you described?
There are Cambridge, Oxford, Stanford, Yale, Harvard, a bunch of well-known universities, as well as some large organizations around the world, have studied dyslexia more and more in the last few decades to understand what these skills are. And depending on who you look at and who you talk to, there's anywhere between 12 and 19 skills. And it's innately cognitive, and it's the way the brain is wired.
Okay.
So the brain is wired to see things in a certain way. So there's a medical study that shows that people with dyslexia have a broader peripheral vision. So we see more of the periphery, and what we see in that periphery is clearer than most. So it helps with spatial recognition and patterns and the like. Now, if you think of dyslexia as a disability, and some people call it disability or disease, it's not, but only 10 to 15% of the population have it. Now, 20 to 30% of entrepreneurs and nearly 40% of self-made millionaires worldwide are dyslexic.
Wow,
Okay,
so it's not there.
Yeah, kind of, they're obviously not stupid. And in the United States, NASA actively recruits people with dyslexia. About 50% of NASA is dyslexic. So we're sending people into space. We're going back to the moon. We're planning on going to Mars. You don't do that if you're dumb.
Right.
So it's just not the case. What is found is these cognitive skills of pattern recognition, interpersonal communications, being able to study something that is completely irrelevant. Let's say studying the development of plastic glasses or the polymer of plastic, and applying that to the development of high-speed rail.
Right.
What do those have in common? Right.
So making connections where most other people wouldn't. Now, did you have, Paul, an aha moment when you found out you were dyslexic? Say, now I understand why people thought I was stupid.
Yes. Yeah. And I found out at age 40 because our daughter was diagnosed with dyslexia. And as they went through the description, I was like, oh, I understand that. Oh, that's me. Of course.
Wow.
And they said, well, would you like to be tested? And I said, well, of course. I mean, I'm paying for this. Why not? Test me.
Right.
And they came back and said, yep, you're dyslexic and some other things. And they explained, and that's when my journey began. Because at the time there was very little research, and it took a good decade for me to get this body of work put together. And as I did that, I kept thinking, gosh, Jim, if other people could see what I see, what a great world this would be. Not because they see it the way I see it. It's because there's no boundary. There's just no boundary. I have enough innovations to last me 10 lifetimes. And I can come up with another lifetime in the next 15 minutes, coming up with ideas and thoughts and put them down. And it's not just wild ideas. These are things that I see the innovation, and I also see the path, step by step, how to get there.
Right.
I can do it like that. So as I continued to think about that, I said, I need to share this with more people, because there's 85 to 90% of the population that don't know this, but they have the ability to learn it. Just because my brain is wired this way, we have, neuroplasticity. Everyone has that ability. So what if I took the skills and just translated it for neurotypical people? And that was the beginning of the aha moment. I can show other people not just what I see, but I can show them how to see it and what to do with that.
Now that is so good, because that was going to be my next question, right? Which is, can people learn it, or is it something you have to be born with? And also, do you find that your ability to use these, I don't know what you call them, skills, I suppose, or talents?
Yeah, skills.
Skills has actually expanded over the years? Have you become better at it once you've recognized what you can do?
Absolutely. For me, much of it is innate. In other words, it was there. My ability that improved was my ability to explain it. So, Paul, how did you come up with this new business model from, what did you say, a box of tissues, a newspaper article, and changing a tire on the side of the road? What did you come up with this? So my ability to explain the cognitive connecting dots, studying skill, this surveying skill rising above, this hands-on skill of taking things apart called deciphering, just all of these things. And they go, oh, so if you can decipher, you can study, and you can survey, you've pretty much gone as deep as you can go, wide as you can go, as high as you can go. And then you take all those points together and match them together and see what starts to connect.
Right.
Yes, that's exactly right.
This is so fascinating, because I truly, deeply believe that the human mind has infinite capability. And from what you describe, it sounds as though some of that has opened up, the lock has been turned, and you can access that kind of open thinking, if you like, that the mind is capable of. And we all have it, but dyslexia seems to make that space bigger for those who I don't know what the word is, suffer from it or display dyslexia.
Fortunate enough to have it.
Yeah, that's a better way of doing it. That's fantastic. Okay, so then you came up with this thing. Okay, well, how can I teach other people to do what I'm doing? What did you do?
I took the studies from around the world and started to compare those studies about the skills. Some call them different things. Some have 4 skills that are broken down into a bunch of others. Some have. So I took those and rationalized them across 5 or 6 different categories and started to place them in different spots, and then define them in a way that is not psychological, medical, that it is personal and business related. So putting it in those terms, and started working with people. I had already helped organizations, now say a decade after my diagnosis. I'd met a bunch of people, I've been working with them and sort of telling them what I was doing, but still delivering more and more value to the organizations. To date, it's 31 industries, companies in 31 industries, 27 countries, and $21.7 billion in new revenue for those companies. And as I continued to do that, you've heard the phrase, Ashim, you've heard, you can give a person a fish and they eat for a day, or you can teach them to fish and they eat for life. Well, I don't I don't necessarily believe in either of those. I take it a little further. I teach them how to think about fishing and hunting and farming and their community and other things. Now they've got all of these resources that they can do anything with. So yes, they can eat for life. They can also build a community, an organization, a company, a nonprofit, a movement, whatever that is, because they now can see and understand and manipulate all of the input that's available right now. Everything that we need to achieve anything we can imagine already exists. It already exists.
Right. So that's I mean that's a holistic way of thinking about even the smallest challenge or the smallest issue.
Right.
Do I learn to fish? Do I receive a fish? Or do I set up a business which sells fish? It's completely different mindset, isn't it? It's fantastic. Now, the thing that struck me is that, somebody might be listening to this and saying, well, yeah, I would love to set up a fish sales business, but you know what? I just don't believe I can do it, or I don't believe I'm worth it, or everyone always told me when I was a kid that I'd never amount to anything. Those self-limiting beliefs. So,
Yes.
I mean, do those kind of modify or moderate those when people start to see these ideas that you're putting in front of them?
Yeah, if I understand your question properly, it's the inner talk of anyone, whether you have dyslexia or not.
Do people, sorry to interrupt you, but do people become more self-confident when you paint this picture for them?
Oh, absolutely. Especially those that have dyslexia or any neurodiversity. However, everyone carries baggage. Between you and me, we all have baggage. We all have somebody that said something to us that still sticks in our head.
That's our secret, Paul. We won't tell anyone.
Right. Okay, right. Fair enough. So maybe it's just you and me. Maybe we're the only people in the world that have doubt. Yes, I find that as people are able to see things immediately through different exercises and whatnot, in 4 minutes from stage, when I do my keynotes, I teach people a skill that is called reimagining. And that reimagining skill they'll have at the end of that 4 minutes, they'll have for the rest of their life. So It's already cognitively there. I'm just connecting some neurons in their brain, giving them a metaphor, and then applying it. And I share a story that still sticks with me today. I'm so proud of this organization that they came up with a new solution in 2 weeks and $15 million from the craziest exercise that had nothing to do with business, nothing. In 4 minutes, and then 4 of them didn't even know each other, had coffee at the break, and they started talking, and they used the information from their notes, and ta-da, I got a call from the company, which is a global tech company. If I used the name, everyone on this would know the name of the company. And I said, that's terrific. I need to charge more for my keynotes because you got 15 million in 2 weeks.
Right.
Nice job. Right. Did that answer your question about people just seeing it and going, I bet the confidence then is, oh, this isn't odd. This is actually normal, because I do recognize a few things, and you're telling me that I can use that information, a memory from my childhood, a principle from that childhood, and use that principle with a couple of other principles to come up with a new business process?
Wow. Yeah.
Saying, yes, absolutely, you can do that. In fact, I've got someone I can introduce you to that did it in four people did it in 30 minutes. And it took 2 weeks, quote, 2 weeks, to put together this process. And they had their first sale to a large telecommunications company as a trial, and the trial was $15 million.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Fantastic. It's really, it sounds great, but here's the thing. You need, when you give your keynote speeches, or when you talk to your clients, let's say around the board table, what is it that makes them different? These are because it sounds to me as though these leaders, these clients, and people who are listening to you in your audience, are open-minded enough to say, well, look, let's look at things differently to what we've been doing so far. Is there some common characteristic that your audiences share which makes them more open, more receptive, more willing to implement your ideas?
Yes, and without arrogance, it's me. Because we begin by talking about conventional wisdom. And conventional wisdom is terrific. Industry best practices, another one of those things. So if you think about that, we all look to keynote speakers as like the industry expert. And I start immediately by saying, I'm not. And I'm really glad I'm not. Here's why. Conventional wisdom, industry best practices are often defined by that industry's leaders and subject matter experts. It's well-intentioned, but without a broad set of experiences, it's from a narrow perspective. This is the way packaging manufacturing has always been, or these are the trends that are iterative. And I blow that apart, say, so if everyone follows the best practices, where's your differentiation? You're automatically now part of the masses. And in the masses, in this age of disruption, the masses are not just at risk of being mediocre, they're on the path to irrelevance. Now, who here wants to be irrelevant? No one. And who here believes they've got something unique? It should be everyone in this room that says, I too have something unique. And you might find somebody in Bangladesh that has the exact same thing. They're in Bangladesh and you're in Poland, so therefore it's still unique, right?
Right.
We go through that, and then I talk about the thinking outside the box. Yes, thinking outside the box. Here's the challenge with thinking outside the box. It has its own unintentional constraint, the box. So I think outside the box and I bring it back and put it in the box. There is no box. Thinking outside the box, I don't. I just think and I do. There is no box.
The box is a mental construct.
Exactly. And I appreciate people say, boy, Paul, you think way outside the box. I say, I know. I think so far outside the box, there is no box. And there never will be. I'll never go back to a box because there's so much more to be achieved here.
Right.
So as I speak with them, we start at that base. Here's what conventional wisdom, industry best practices do. Yes, I'm not suggesting that you should break the law and do funky accounting. You need to follow the general guidelines of accounting practices. But as it comes to your business, there are no rules. It is what you want it to be, and the reason that you want it to be. You want to serve a marketplace. You want to serve clients. So it's up to you to determine how you want to run your business. And may I suggest that it would be with input from completely different organizations. Yeah. So the challenge that we all face is something that we all often embrace, which is conventional wisdom and industry best practices. And for those people that follow it, congratulations, you're right in line with everyone. You're following those trends, and you're trying to stay right at that cutting edge of the trend. But those industry best practices, even the trends, are designed by the industry's leaders and subject matter experts. Well-intentioned, but limited perspective if they don't have a broad set of experiences. So that industry expert is actually leading you down the road of mediocrity. Unfortunately, for some of you, it'll be irrelevance. When you think, though, outside of the box and agree with me that thinking outside the box is a self-constrained message anyway, because it still has a box. I go think, I put the ideas back in, I'm returning back to the same place. We don't think outside the box. We destroy the box. There is no box. We think. We just simply think. And when you think, now everything is on the table. And that's where people can find something from another industry, a personal experience. Those gentlemen I was telling you about earlier, the four of them that started the conversation around the coffee pot, it was from a 3x5 card. I handed them all out and asked them to fill in, answer 4 questions about a fond childhood memory. So a bicycle, a camping trip, and 2 others. That's what they used to create this new solution, a new business approach that got them $15 million with their very first client for a test run. And I don't know today, maybe it's $150 million annually. Right?
Absolutely.
And it was the principles of that.
Absolutely fascinating, Paul. So, I mean, you've been talking about your work across the world. You've appeared on stages, Paris to Sydney. What has that experience been like? How have you been received, and how's your message been kind of absorbed by audiences? Have you seen any differences in different parts of the world?
The greatest part of being a key, the short answer to your question is yes. It's extremely rewarding. When you have an aha moment, when something clicks and you go, oh, right? It's that surprise, and then it's a little deeper, like, and then it goes very deep. Like, I can do this right now. I have access to what I need, right? I got to do something. Excuse me, I'm leaving because I've now got this idea. That is the greatest gift that I get from stage, is seeing groups or an entire audience have that light bulb moment at different points in a 45 or 60-minute conversation. That is what I'll do until the day I die. I have to share these skills with people so they know it's available. They already have the DNA, dyslexic or not, to make the cognitive connections, and you don't have to learn all 12 or 19 skills. A couple of them will get you going enough to date to reach that 21.7. Let's hope that it's 22 billion by the next time we talk. And that's 35 countries and another 10 industries, who knows? So yes, the reception is terrific. And there are also naysayers that say, oh, that's neat, but I didn't make the connection. I've had one person that was offended by an example that I used of there's a fast food company here in the US called Chick-fil-A. And they were offended that I used Chick-fil-A as the example because it's a Christian-based organization. Well, it was just an example how one idea that they had from one director that was at a Ritz-Carlton took the phrase, instead of "you're welcome," "my pleasure" is the answer, and now it's synonymous. All 2,200 franchises around the world all respond to thank you with "my pleasure." Right. So it's become synonymous. And someone got upset because they thought it was inappropriate because I was being culturally insensitive. And I apologize. I didn't realize that would bother everyone. The most part, the people go, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea." And they walk out with a 3x5, and I encourage them to share what you, from this childhood memory, share what that principle is with some other people. I've done it in, 1,500 people. I've done it with 8 people around a boardroom. And it never ceases to amaze me what they come up with and how quickly they recognize they have access to everything they need. They don't need another consultant. They don't need to go out and create something. In fact, if anything, they have what they need to be the disruptor, not the disrupted. It's focusing on being adaptable and start focusing on being innovative.
Right.
Because innovation drives the change that others respond to. And they spend less time thinking about, well, what are the current trends? And they think more about what can we do right now that no one else can do, because we see the world differently.
Right.
It's immediately available. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. We no longer feel that we need to think within the frameworks that we have built around us, or others have built around us over the years. Right. We suddenly are freed intellectually and mentally.
Yes, and that I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No, go on.
That ties back to, Paul, how do you deal with the voices in your head that are still saying you're stupid,
Right.
you're lazy? See, Paul, you still can't spell worth a darn. And
Yeah.
why does it take you so long to read? It combats those. Yes,
Right.
it does take me longer to read. And I'm writing a book, and it's taken a long time, and it's painful, for sure. However, that voice is less important than the voices that are calling out, hey, can somebody help me?
Right.
And
No,
so I'm driven by that.
Well, I want to talk about your book in just a second, but the other thing that struck me was, as you're describing how people responded to you, I thought, my God, suddenly, they must be having aha moments all the time, and you can see it in people's eyes. I see it a lot when I do training or when I do coaching. I see a lot. There's a light that goes on. It's very difficult to describe. There's a light that goes on behind some, people's eyes, and you think, that's an aha. They got it. They really connect with it, and it's very satisfying. I'm sure it's the same for you. To see it happen because of something that you have contributed to their thinking. It's wonderful to feel.
Right.
Well.
Yeah, and I say it even to the audiences. I say, okay, I saw a bunch of light bulbs come on. If you could see you from where I'm standing, your heart would race and you'd be thrilled. And that's exactly why I do this. I mean, I can make money other ways. I don't need to do this, but to be able to see, okay, and it's not about me. It's still not about me. Oh, look at all the people you've talked to. It's not about that. Look at the people that are now making a difference in their business, in their communities, in their country, their culture, the movement, their organizations, small teams, big teams. If we can get beyond the common, the conventional, and recognize that everyone has something to contribute. Everyone has something to contribute to fill in the blank. Our most critical problem, our biggest, hairiest, audacious goal, whatever that is, everyone brings something to the table. The person that's part-time, that sweeps the floor at your office, they have an experience that you've never had. If you had that experience and you learned what the principles were, oh man, another light bulb goes off.
Yeah, absolutely. So not only do they find insights into themselves, they find insights into the people around them as well. Yeah, absolutely. So you brought all of this into a book. You say it's taking you a while. I remember you mentioned in our last conversation that you were thinking of taking a sabbatical to write it because it is painful.
Yes.
So what's in it?
You're right. It is painful, and I am on that sabbatical, and I'm closing in on that final manuscript. But I'll turn over to the publisher to do what they do and edit and all that stuff. It is 6 of the 19 skills that I've focused on, that I've seen the most success with organizations, that seem to be the most relevant for this decade to 2 decades that I'm seeing coming, for people to use these skills to be the trendsetter, not follow trends, to be the disruptor, not be the disrupted, and to give themselves permission to think and use that which they think is irrelevant. Because nothing in your life has been irrelevant. Nothing has been wasted. And the more that you reach out and find other people with different experiences, 2 things happen. 1, you find out humanity is really kind of cool, and there's a lot of really great people around the world. And 2, they have something to offer, perhaps from their childhood, that they can share with you, and you can give them your 3x5 card. And now together, you've just discovered, wow, this is incredible. I ask our organizations, for instance, what does a bakery in Bulgaria have in common with a steel mill in Spain? Okay, so they're both in business. There's not a lot in common. What does a movie theater in Malaysia have in common with a distribution center in Denmark? Okay, again, not much. What does a flu in China have to do with unemployment around the world? Well, up until 2020, conventional wisdom still said, not a lot.
Right.
Well, now we all know. that there's a lot more interconnectivity in this world than we're giving credit for. So when you recognize that and you can see that and you have the skills to study it, to survey it, to decipher it, to investigate it, and then to reimagine what that means across multiple experiences from multiple people, now you have everything you need.
Right.
Anything you can imagine.
Right. Oh, what's that expression about a butterfly's wings causing a huge? I can't remember what it is.
It's the philosophical butterfly effect. It's basically the ripple effect. If you think of dropping a stone in a still body of water, a large lake, the ripple effect and how it grows.
Right.
It's similar to that, in that if I can empower one organization, I know, or even just a group of executives within an organization, I've already seen how that change at the executive level starts to influence the first line individual contributors, because some of that first line individual contributors, they're part of the 10 to 15%. Every company's got that approximate number of dyslexics. And they start to raise their hand and say, I think you're saying such and such. Are you dyslexic? No, oh, I'm not dyslexic, but are you? And they'll say, well, yeah, but I don't want, I don't tell people about that. Oh, no, we love the fact that you are. We've learned, Paul told us about you and the way your brain works. Fantastic. Okay, so we want to include you in some other things. And then it starts to seep top down, bottom up. And now everybody is bringing their whole self to that endeavor. It doesn't even have to be business. I'm everything about me from my childhood to present. It all comes with me to work or to the organization or to the whatever that is. And everything is in play.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a novel way of thinking, and when you lay it out the way you have, Paul, it makes perfect sense. And it's great. It's certainly an eye-opener. I'm sure it will be for anyone else that listens to our conversation today. So one of the groups of people whom I hope will be listening to this are entrepreneurs, people who are either already entrepreneurs, that they're out there doing something, creating something, or they're thinking of taking that leap from being an employee to being an entrepreneur, and all the kind of the negative self-talk that you hear in that. If you were to advise them, because you've been through all of that and you've had lots of negativity around you, if you had some key pieces of advice that you'd give to these people, what would those pieces of advice be?
There's a few things. One is, today's entrepreneurs are different than, say, 20 years ago, in my opinion. They are more open to asking for help. So asking for help, do it. Now, the slight tweak that I suggest is the help that you're looking for may not be with the venture capital, the private equity, the consulting firm that focuses on startups in your specific industry. My suggestion is seek help and insight from people that you typically would not go to. So go to that baker in Bulgaria. In fact, if you really want one, let me know. I've got a friend who's got 6 bakeries in Bulgaria. His name is Ivan. And I met him because I did the keynote and somebody said, I have a friend who's a baker in Bulgaria. Tell me yours. Well, I said, it was an alliteration. I really don't have one, but I should. And so that next week, I went on LinkedIn and I found some people, and Ivan and I've been talking ever since for the last 5 years, right? So there's people are out there. So get help from non-common organizations, people, mentors, consultants in a completely different industry. That's number one. 2, you're going to have imposter syndrome. That's the phrase of the day, but it's self-doubt. It's been around since the dawn of time. It just happens.
Right.
If there's one thing I could impart to you, if you could feel the ultra confidence that I have with this one phrase, and know that this is a truth, and you felt that same, even a slight fraction of that, this helped. That right now, wherever you are in your journeys, in your creation of your organization, whether it's a 1 year, 1 month, 10, a decade, doesn't matter. Right where you are right now, you can access everything you need to achieve anything you can imagine, anything you can, beyond your wildest dreams of what this entrepreneurial venture is. You have access to that when you know where and how to look. And that's the peripheral thinking skills model. And you don't have to do all of that. I'm not looking for more business, but if you just embrace that and know that it's already there, the elements are already there.
Right.
You
So
just
knowing that
see
it's
them.
there is important.
Yes. Right. That
And
it's
then going out to seek it somehow.
correct. So you are not alone. This problem is not new, but you're an entrepreneur. So what you're doing is new, not just to you. If you've got a truly entrepreneurial venture, it's somewhat new to other people. You found an ideal client persona. You've got something it's in you. It's just got to get out. Okay. Get it out. And if you don't have all the pieces, you're just not looking in the right places.
Right.
The pieces exist. When John F. Kennedy said, "Hey, we're going to put a person on the moon" in 1961, NASA said, "You got to be crazy." Right? The conventional wisdom said, "We don't even have the math to get there." That's not true. Math is math. You just haven't put the math together properly. And so NASA literally went to every industry around the world and said, "Give us everything you got. Everything. We'll take it, whether you think it applies or not." 1969, person's on the moon. Did all those elements exist? Yes, there were materials, there were electronics, there was math, a bunch of things. They just needed to be woven together now uniquely. How do you make a spacesuit? Well, I don't know. Well, the materials are there and they're elements. We've got fabrics, we've got things that are waterproof. Well, that also may mean that they're airproof. They're, all of those different things. We've got oxygen tanks. Okay, how do we put that together and seal it all up to make a helmet and a suit? Well, it was already there. It just needed to be woven together.
Yes, absolutely. And your thoughts need to be woven together by looking in the right places, or if you like, looking outside the non-existent mental construct we call a box.
The non-existent thing. Yes, yeah. Well done.
So yeah, absolutely. My goodness, that's absolutely fascinating. Well, when this video goes out, when this it's part of a package. There'll be 21 speakers, including you, in that package.
Modern.
Of course, all your contact details will be available to listeners. So I would strongly recommend you, if you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking about being one, or you're facing challenges, and you're asking the same questions that Paul has addressed, such as, where do I look? I feel stuck. There will be ways at the bottom of this video for you to reach out to Paul. So, Paul, I don't know where to begin to thank you. It's been
it's truly my pleasure, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to share this with your audience and with this group of people. I set out to address 100,000 people by the end of 2025, wow, and 1 million people by the end of 2030, with at least one peripheral thinking skill. And so I offer to those that are watching, look, I was honored to be a chapter writer. I was a contributing author to an international bestseller in 2022, Peak Performance Mindset Tools for Entrepreneurs. If you want my chapter from that free, I've got it set up where you go to the website. I can give it here, or they'll show it below, and you just put your name and email address. I don't use any of that stuff. It's just to confirm you're a real person, and then immediately you'll have access to that, and it'll talk you through an adventure that I went on and how we turned something very silly into something incredibly powerful, and in turn drove $1.2 billion in revenue for our client, and changed the trajectory of 2 organizations, both of them global. And
well, there's an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah.
So look, share where people should go to get a hold of that? I mean, we'll put it in underneath the video as well.
So it's on my personal website, which is pauldanielsjr.com, and then /free-chapter. Free chapter.
Free chapter.
Hyphen chapter. So free hyphen chapter. And it's hidden. It's, if you go to my website, it's not available. So you need that URL, and I'm sure that it'll be in the speaker's notes, but it's www.pauldanielsjr.com /free-chapter.
Free-chapter. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. As I say, it will be there and available to anyone that goes.
For this group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so thank you again, and from your lips to God's ears, Paul. I look forward to us meeting in person, and who knows, maybe even sharing a stage, as you suggested.
It would be my honor. Ashim, I'm so glad that we met and that we've become friends, and the work that you're doing inspires me to do mine even more. So you're a great inspiration and a terrific mind and a contributor to the betterment of entrepreneurs and the world in general.
You're very kind, Paul. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So we'll be meeting again very shortly, but for now, I'll say goodbye to everybody, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I'm sure it wasn't difficult. Paul had so many fascinating things to say. I was riveted from the beginning. So anyway, thank you again and goodbye.